Okay, we're good to start now. Hey guys, welcome back to the Inkyappers podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nate, and with me we have Vo, and we have Christian looking significantly different than normal. Okay, fine, just kidding. It is Hannah. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm doing awesome. This week we're letting Nate kind of lead the podcast because I'm not going to be here next week. I am going on a trip to Disney World. Super excited for that.
Let's go.
So I'm doing really good. I leave tomorrow, actually, as of the time that we're recording, but that's what I'm looking forward to. How about you, Hannah?
Well, today has been very good. I colored a lot of the day, a lot of the morning on the floor with my kids, and they had a great time. As far as things I'm looking forward to, I'm really excited for going to CCS this week. I'm trying to decide between a couple of decks, so I'm very excited about that.
It's okay. We won't leak your sauce here, unless you want to leak it
No,
yourself later. But
super secret blue yellow sauce. And then I am doing pretty well myself. And then obviously, the biggest thing for me today was our first topic, actually, which will be the DLC tickets, the remaining ones finally going on sale today. And I was lucky enough to ninja up one for my wife real quick. I had already got one that she ninja'd for me the first time, so now I have repaid love with the only way you can, which is also ninjaing items for your significant other. Very excited about that. We didn't know if we were going to end up being able to get her a competitive ticket or what, but we ended up snagging a competitor badge, which was pretty nice, like right at 11, so thankful for that. Hannah, I know you had to get a competitor badge today. How did that experience go for you today?
Yeah. For us, it went without a hitch, but we were really nervous that something bad would happen. And so we were probably on our computers at like 9:45, an hour and 15 minutes before it went live.
You never know.
And then, we were planning for the worst. So at around 10 o'clock, I spent about 5 minutes refreshing the page just in case it went early. And, but then when 11 o'clock came around, we were both refreshing and ticket popped up. Christian and me both got into the cart, but since we only needed one and we were on one account, we were able to get one ticket. And so I was very excited about that because even though Wisconsin set champs sounded fun, I wanted to go to the DLC more.
well, I've told you that's kind of my plan, is to go 0-3 at the DLC and then go find a set champ to go be sad at as well. Like that's the plan.
Well, we still have a chance to do that, really.
For sure.
We do.
Vo, how was it? Because you already had a competitor ticket, I believe, right?
Yeah, I did already have a ticket, but it was nice because I kind of got to third party and just kind of watch everybody else
just
go through the chaos.
Well, that was me too. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this time seemed a lot smoother than the last time. Everybody was like, "Oh, I'm in. I got a ticket," and it seemed like a lot of us who wanted tickets got tickets for the most part. Especially here in Minnesota, almost everybody that is in like our normal community stated they got a ticket who wanted a ticket. So that's kind of nice that everybody was able to go for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really excited.
It would have been nice to not have to do anything and just, like you said, just watch to see if the world's on fire, but you're drinking a glass of lemonade or something like that. You're just like, must be bad out there. But no, having to snag an extra one was a fun time. But luckily, like you said, went off kind of without a hitch. Not really like. I used my phone this time. I heard that people who were actually on the computer were struggling out there a little bit. But luckily, went pretty well this time. Obviously, I'm sure there's people who are still mad out there because turns out there's 400 there were 400 tickets left, and like somebody's not gonna get it that wanted it, you know, for sure. So it's like trying to fit the old saying, trying to fit 10 pounds of poop into a 5-pound bag, you know. That's the classic situation, I think, with DLC tickets, for sure.
For sure.
But those aside, I think now we kind of get to talk about the big thing that just happened, which is Fable release weekend. As far as opening piles and piles of Disney Arcana packs, which I know I did. What is? Oh, we're showing off Enchanted.
Which Enchanted is that?
That is
This
Ariel.
is my Ariel.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm trying to keep it in my face so that it doesn't get like green screened out.
It sure did there for a second there. You have a mystery reveal with the green screen out, but that is beautiful.
There it is.
Yeah, so lots of Enchanted openings. The biggest thing that I saw, I was part to seeing 2 Iconics being opened between this weekend and yesterday with our locals. We saw an Iconic be opened, and I've like been this many degrees away from the beauty that is those Iconic cards. But it was a great release. I'll go ahead and start that. It was a great release weekend for me. Got to play some draft, some pack rush, and some more draft. Yeah, which was like really fun. I think the biggest thing that I found that I was like really excited about, other than just like opening cool and interesting cards, was as somebody who has personally not been that great at Limited in the past and now has friends who are way better at Limited than me to tell me what to do. I have had better performances in Limited than I did in the past, which I was pretty happy about, actually. And then we had above average cases for Enchanteds. Like we opened 2 cases because we're crazy, and our locals had a lot of product, thankfully. The second case was, I guess, about average, but the first case we opened 2 Enchanteds in it, and then I had a trove where I opened another Enchanted, so I got a Hades, Bell, and a Beast. So like all of my favorite chase Enchanteds that aren't Scar. So I was having a great time. That's about it for release weekend for me. Hannah, how about you? How was your release weekend?
Well, my release weekend was a lot of fun. I played in 2 sealed events, and then me and Christian decided not to buy any product other than what we got from sealed. We just have all the cards except for the new cards, and when are you going to open 4 Dumbo, like what we need?
Yeah.
So we did that. We played in 2 sealed events. I went Friday, Christian went Sunday, and then we both went on Saturday. And we had a lot of fun with both of those. Bo cheated against me in the one game that we played against us. Then he gave me the win in that game anyway, and then he crushed me because his sealed pool was way better than mine. And mine's still pretty okay, but you know, sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. But I had a lot of fun in both of the sealed events. I very much enjoy sealed. I like draft even better, and I'm going to draft tonight. So I am very excited about all of it.
Well,
yeah, my weekend was amazing to say the least. So we ended up opening 5 total cases and 1 trove, I believe. And I averaged, well, if we're just talking just the cases themselves, we opened 4 Enchanteds out of 5 cases. But through the other events like sealed and draft this weekend, I ended up getting another Enchanted in the most unlikely of ways. So I ended up averaging still my 5 Enchanted for my 5 cases. Actually, it's this one right here. This is the last one that we pulled. It was the Cruella. Gotta cover up my face. It's the Cruella DeVille. Nice. So this one was opened up at the sealed that we did, that Hannah was talking about, where I cheated. And I would have gotten away with it too. No, I'm just kidding.
Would have gotten away
I'm just kidding.
bro.
No,
I will say. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so how I got that card was kind of the funny story. So at the beginning, they pass out the packs and everything, and I'm always like kind of messing around. I'm like, who wants to trade packs? Who wants to trade packs? And another one of our locals, Haley, traded a pack with me, and I'm like, I'm gonna hold your pack aside just so I know this is your pack. And then she's like, I'm gonna hold your pack aside. So she opens up my pack, she pulls a legendary Hades out of there, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And I open up her pack, and I'm like, it's an enchanted double legendary pack.
Oh,
so I was like, and it's like, wow, as cool as that is, like, you feel kind of bad because it's like, that was their pack, and they're probably kind of hurting from that too. But it was all good. Haley was a good sport about it, and it was a fun event. And then the day after that, I went to a draft at another one of our local stores, and then I saw an iconic Mickey pulled right in front of me. That was, yeah.
Now, I will say,
about as crazy it gets.
Said iconic Mickey situation to add to this a little bit, because I was at that draft. Seeing it in front of you is great, but telling the child who pulled it beforehand, you get this set of packs. It's quite a bummer. I reverse voted myself, really.
Yeah.
I
was thinking the same thing.
This set of packs right here, and then that gets pulled.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here like, well, I opened a Maleficent Dragon that I'm not going to play in my draft deck, but awesome, but it was hilarious because we also just like, everything got so disorganized after the iconic was pulled because we were all just so ungodly excited. We're just like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like you'd think we just found like the Ark of the Covenant or something. Just like everybody's losing their mind. We were down like one card in the packs by the end of it. We just all like, what? It was a great time.
It was.
And then like, what was the other big thing I was gonna say? Oh yeah, just the iconics in general, just so beautiful. Just really cool to see them get pulled. We saw one at our locals last night too, and there weren't a lot of people around. But even if there was like 4 of us around when that was pulled, because pulled before the locals started, and we still were just like incredibly hyped about it. Because I mean, it's $1,000 piece of cardboard. Like you don't get that all the time. That was the biggest like funny part about our pack rush that we had. This is the one time where when you have pack rush, we all kind of agreed that we're gonna look at the foil a little bit just to make sure we're not shuffling around $1,000. That was kind of the biggest thing in release weekend. But yeah, no, just an exciting weekend. And then obviously the biggest thing, other than just the actual set release coming out, was we did have a couple tournaments. One of the biggest one being the SSG, 15 case, something like that, in Florida down there, where they had basically our first big constructed tournament of the set, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Definitely some like expectations that were met and changed after the sort of seeing the results of it, for sure. The biggest one that I would probably start off with, which was like Amber Steel not being putting up results, is crazy. I don't know how popular it was necessarily. I'm not sure on the breakdown of that, but definitely not putting up the results that we as players all thought it would as the Boogeyman. So what are your guys' kind of thoughts on that tournament?
I believe that Amber Steel throughout the whole weekend was like the third, depending on the tournament. There were 3 big ones this weekend. Depending on the tournament, they were either the second most populated deck or the third most populated deck. The first most populated across the board being Blurple. But yeah, it definitely did not perform as well as everybody was thinking it was going to, which is kind of shows how good and balanced our meta is going to be. Everybody, that was the like you were saying, that was the Boogeyman, and everybody came ready for that deck. So that deck got almost completely just beaten down and was basically dead on arrival is what I want to say. That deck's gonna need to make some changes to just to keep up. It's still a very good deck, but it's gonna need to make some changes to just be able to keep up with the likes of Amethyst Steel and Blurple. How about you, Hannah? What do you think?
Yeah. So I think it was the one tournament I'm thinking about had probably 20% Amber Steel, and I was surprised, first of all, that it was that low. I've been going about this whole planning for tournaments thinking Amber Steel is going to be the most played deck, whether it's the best deck, that we'll figure that out eventually. But, it's going to be very popular. It's going to be pretty good. So I was thinking nobody's going to want to play Blurple because Blurple just dies hard to that deck. But then, Blurple comes in and decides we're going to just be, what was it? Like, well, I guess there was more than one tournament. The one I saw was like 7 out of 8 decks were either Amethyst Steel or Blurple. And I thought that was crazy because most of it was Blurple. And I don't understand how, like, they are able to beat Amber Steel. I guess, if they go first, that helps a lot. But I need to figure it out for this weekend, though.
I think you just contest the early game just enough, and then by turns 3, 4, and 5, your cards just outvalue them, and with draw being so limited, unless they super high roll you by going like dock into dock into docks, it's really hard for them to do it, especially on the draw.
Yeah, for sure. But I was very interested in all of that type of stuff.
That's kind of what I've been like feeling from some testing in general too. Like I've tried to do some Amber Steel testing just to like, I don't really ever intend on playing that. Like if you see me playing Amber Steel in an event, an alien has probably replaced me or something because it's just not my style of deck. But I find that you're lower on resources and like you have like a lot of horsepower early game, but it's pretty beatable if you didn't crazy high roll, essentially. Like you have to go like lady into something nuts, like Doc usually, or like a lot of people I think have touted the Tiana thing. The Tiana thing to me feels very, very inconsistent as well. Is the other big thing I've like kind of noted playing the deck a little bit, and I just think a lot of decks have ways to just get into that mid to late game where they can start to not care so much about these sad little Amber Steel dudes. But that was going to be kind of my question, is what you guys ultimately think sort of is the reason that it didn't convert. I don't know if it's just die rolls, if it's just like people being super prepared for it, or if it's just the deck puttering out against things. It might be a combination of those. I think Purple Steel definitely keeps it in check a lot too. That's probably the biggest thing.
I think it's kind of a combination of it all. The deck's just, it's still kind of fast, but it's not really as fast as it used to be. You're missing out on Smees and Piglets and stuff like that now. And then it's recovery in terms of like, we used to have Rapunzel. You used to be able to wheel 7 brand new cards and keep the engine going. You're very reliant on the dock to just keep the engine going. And the cards just aren't as valuable as they used to be. So, Doc's still drawing you 2 new cards, but if those 2 cards aren't that valuable, you're gonna lose in just the next few turns when your opponent starts playing much more valuable cards on turns 4, 5, and 6. The 2-drop is kind of where I've been feeling like the deck's been lacking the most right now, and everybody's kind of turned to Nala a little bit, but I'm still not the biggest fan of Nala. She realistically only feels good on the play. She doesn't feel that good to play later in the game, and she doesn't feel good to play on the draw whatsoever.
No.
And the same with Tiana. Like on the draw, your opponent's like, oh, I'm gonna play a big old 3-drop here with tons of stats, and then you're playing from behind on the draw, so you're like, here comes my 1/4 Tiana that you're never going to challenge into because you're in the driver's seat. That's how I feel about the deck right now. It is still very good. If you can win every single dice roll, and that your dice are hot, then Amber Steel could still be the pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's weird because Amber Steel can be so powerful, but it also, if it isn't lucky, also, you're not going to win. You're not going to win if you don't dock into dock and into strength,
into
all of
dock,
that. And
into
yeah,
stealing your
exactly.
credit
And
card,
then,
into
yes, of course. Yeah. And then, yeah, I think that if you play Tiana in the deck, if you play it and they have an answer for it, you are dead. There is no way that you're not dead. If you play your 3-cost card, it does nothing. And then they strength it or they under the sea it or whatever it is. It's like there's really no coming back from that. And so even though I really like Tiana as a card, it's just not so good now that everyone is teched for it. Every deck should have an answer to Tiana in the deck.
I think that was kind of
Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble.
my biggest thing with like those Amber Steel decks from like the little bit of testing I've done. Again, I just hate the deck in general because like aggro decks give me yucky feelings. But uh you want to like quest a bunch behind your Tiana, but the biggest thing that I've also noticed that happens is like if you're not careful, if they all of a sudden have like 3 dudes and they're just willing to pay the price to take out your Tiana, and then all of a sudden you quested like a silly person, I don't know who would do that, probably me. But like
Yeah.
all of a sudden your other guys are dead and you've just like given the whole you just be prepped yourself essentially. It's like miserable because you have to play so careful uh around hoping your Tiana lives. So it's definitely like you guys said, very much so. Like if you're feeling like you're going to the casino and you're like I'm gonna get there, then probably a great deck for that. And it does have like you said, some of the strongest high rolls. It's just the normal rolls don't feel very good.
Yeah, or playing on the draw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one thing that hurts Amber Steel a little bit is they don't really have any bodyguards that they want to play with Tiana. And so, for the most part, you only have to pay 3 ink and then you can take out Tiana with one of your guys that are already on board. The bodyguard kind of helps alleviate that a little bit, but there's not as many of those anymore. Also,
Yeah, and even the couple that I've seen interest in playing, like it goes back to like kind of Vo's point earlier, where they're just overall low quality cards. I think the strongest one of them
yeah,
is Pluto, but then after that, the drop off is very real. We're looking at like Jim Deere, and I don't,
yeah.
Big Jim. I don't think he's holding off a lot of those
Oh
characters very
no,
well. you know.
no.
Um, so I think Amber Steel. I'm sure there are plenty of builds. I've always pictured, not to give away any secret sauce here, but I've pictured like maybe possibly like a bigger version of Amber Steel that doesn't try to high roll as much, but just plays some more consistently good cards. But then you just add a Blurple, which obviously we'll talk about kind of next
Yes and
year.
no, maybe we'll see. Cause like Big Stitch is pretty big.
Big Stitch is pretty big. He's pretty big.
That's the thing that Amber cards, like a lot of people are always just playing them because they're like, oh, I can quest so fast. But no, Amber cards have some of the biggest booties out there, so it could work.
That's true. Eight is huge.
Yeah.
But to get into some of the non-boogie decks or boogeyman decks that did perform well, I think the first one we got to look at is what actually won SSG here, not SSC. I don't know what SSC is. Which is going to be Purple Steel, which ended up taking first. And I think we've all seen a lot of lists like this. I know we've seen various different flavors, whether it's like go way faster, try to go a little bigger. This one looks like it's splitting the difference quite a bit. But the biggest thing that we've seen kind of come out of these is the Treasure Guardian Illusion package. That seemed to be the biggest thing that I've noted. And it seems like it's so funny to think that this like common card that draws a card is actually really, really good. But like everything we've tested and seen with the new format is a lot of staring at each other, right? So if you can have a card that gets you a card while just still being to stare, that's a great position to be in. Everything else in this list feels pretty standard. No, we were going to go into a little bit of overrated, underrated here, but one of the cards we don't see in this list that I think we can start to call pretty overrated is Lilo, actually, and they've forgotten that to play more of a Jafar. So what do you guys think of this list?
I like it a lot. It just kind of, all the cards just synergize so well with each other. You know, your Madam Mim's gonna make all your challenges better. The illusion cards are being discovered to just be very, very powerful right now, since spot removal is so limited right now. You don't really want to just, you only have 4th strength of a Raging Fire in your deck. You really don't want to be using that on a Palace card or even a Raja. That's, you're trading down at that point, which, I mean, if you have to do, you have to do, but it just feels really bad with removal feeling so low. And then on the Lilo, the card was very overrated to begin with, kind of. I think the card is still in itself very strong, but with how the game is right now, the best of players, they're not going to just keep their characters sideways and allow you to play your cards like back then we called it a Rapunzel trap. Now it's kind of like a Lilo trap now, is I guess we'll call it, where you're giving your opponent value by exerting your characters in and giving value. Some of the best players out there are just not going to give you that value, and then your Lilo just ends up being a 2/2 that quests for 1 in your hand, which feels really bad. Jafar, being a soft Lilo feels a little bit better. It can challenge it a little bit more, being a 3/2 body, and it can quest for 2. So it's a little bit more threatening there. But there I can see a time when Lilo is going to be back in over Jafar, when people are just gonna be, going a little bit more and just sending it, letting their characters exert and such. But until that happens, Jafar is probably the better pick.
Yeah, I think the Lilo is interesting because if you know that somebody does not have Lilo in their deck, then you can play a little bit more aggressively and turn sideways a lot more than if you aren't sure, or if you know that they aren't playing Lilo. Because me and Christian were practicing probably 2 days ago now, and we discovered that you need to have Lilo in most of these Amethyst Steel just so that they know you have it. Because if I know you do not have Lilo, I will play way more liberally, I guess. The opposite of conservative. So, I'll be questing into your guys because I'm not worried about this Lilo coming in. But yeah, that's what we noticed. So I am kind of on the boat of playing at least one Lilo just so that they know you have it. But, it doesn't matter as much when you don't know the list, I think.
That's one of those hilarious things too that you'll see. I think Vo hit the nail on the head earlier when he mentioned Rapunzel, because this very much feels like a Rapunzel situation, right? Where it's the better the player is, the more they're gonna play around this card. Last format, if you played against a good player, you were dealing damage to your own Rapunzels to get value off of that card. You were never hitting it into something unless they absolutely had to turn it sideways. And Lilo, like you kind of said, feels about right, because there, Hannah, like you mentioned, there is that weird mind game where it's all right, I know what you know that I know, so I need to have this Lilo, or I need to pay attention to Lilo right now. But if not, then Jafar can do some work too sometimes. So I kind of like your suggestion though, a little bit like a mix of the two, kind of keep people on their toes if they're a really good player, and then they roughly have the same effect in a lot of times because you're just gonna quest one dude or do one thing every now and then. So it kind of makes a lot of sense to me. But overall, these Purple Steel in general definitely coming out as one of the top 2 strongest decks for sure, and it makes a lot of sense. Kind of they have a lot of the tools to be able to eat up those Amber Steel decks and then try their best to either go under or keep up with those blue purple decks. So any closing thoughts on Amethyst Steel from you guys?
I'm really liking the Treasure Guardian pick. it's just been, when I've seen it being played, it's been doing really good for itself. It's kind of like the genie. It replaces itself, and you just play so many illusions, and they stick onto the board now. Like I've seen palace guards basically quest for 5 or more just from turn 1, because nobody really wants to, exert into a 1/4 and then expose yourself into like a good trade next turn. So illusions are becoming a bit of a problem, I would say. So the Treasure Guardian pick is very good.
Yeah, and I think that's the
Yeah.
thing I would add to what you're saying there too, is illusions are something you kind of you hilariously enough are gonna pack answers to you that you wouldn't normally play in your decks. I think the biggest one I've seen when I've been building Amethyst decks is you just fit Hypnotic Strength into there because you're like, I am not getting Iago'd. Like I refuse. The card is so annoying. I think green decks I've also seen improvise too a lot as well. Hannah, what are your closing thoughts on this? Sound like you're gonna say something.
Yeah, I really do like the Treasure Guardian. I think it's really good. I think that at the beginning, people were kind of going with the Dolores Madrigal card, but a character has to be inserted in order to draw a card, which just is not happening very often. So I think Treasure Guardian is the way to go, especially when you're playing all these illusions, which almost every Amethyst deck I've seen is playing at least Palace Guard, and Amethyst Steel is always playing Giant Cobra now, so I think it's a pretty good include there. I think the one card I thought was a little surprising is the Jasmine, just because I haven't seen it in a lot of lists so far, but I understand why it is. It's a great limited pick because it's big body and all of this, and then the dock can refill your hand, so you might have something to discard. So I don't know. I think it looks like a very solid list. Definitely seems like he practiced a bunch to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, that Jasmine.
The Jasmine is a little bit weird, but I think the
I think
Jasmine
it's awesome.
really only stays in this list because they're playing Dumbo. Because Jasmine's a strong card in itself, but this isn't traditionally the kind of deck that you would be playing it in. But because you have Dumbo and Jasmine gets evasive on your turn, you can get that Dumbo value as well. And if you need, you have the option to just buffer up if you have it later to just trade into something really well, and she can hit evasive. So because of the Dumbo, I think if Dumbo wasn't in the list, I don't think you would be playing the Jasmine.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, she definitely strikes me as like a weird card because it feels a lot slower than you'd want to be doing, especially given that, like I said, we're gonna go into Blurple next year. But given the presence of Blurple, I just think putting 5 drops in my deck really have to do a lot. And I don't know that, like you said, I think her being a Dumbo thing is a big thing with that card. Otherwise, she could be below average.
Well, they
but definitely
clearly
a cool card.
picked.
Definitely.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, very cool. And they definitely chose 2 Jasmine instead of 2 more Belle, which is definitely a little bit questionable. But it worked out for him, so
It worked out.
it's pretty cool.
But yeah, well, now to go into the next step we were going to talk about here, we were talking about, I believe this is it right here, Blurple. So this ended up taking 2nd place at the SSG case tournament, and I believe there were a couple other versions of Blurple. I believe there were a lot of versions in the top 8 of this tournament, if I remember right. And then there were a couple other versions as well at the other bigger tournament that I think was going on this weekend. But overall, Blurple, kind of the second deck that people had always been talking about as this is going to be the best thing when we go over. People were kind of being like Amber Steel and then Blurple. And the way I had always said it was like Blurple is going to be the killer of all things slow. You're going to want to step on Amber Steel a little bit, and then you're going to run right into the Blurple wall. And that wall is shaped like a Hades. That guy is just huge.
Yeah.
And he's the best removal around. This list, very interesting, though. A lot of interesting cards, and cards that I don't know that I personally would have put in my list before this weekend. So some interesting things. I think the one that stands out to us the most is probably this Rafiki. That is 4 cost unequal 1/4 that has rush and that challenges 4, right? I believe so. Yeah, 4 and then quest for 2. which seems like a really, really good way to like kind of stomp the aggro decks a little bit. And I'm actually pretty interested in that card, especially because your uninkable count isn't crazy in these decks anymore. So like getting to play with that room a little bit, pretty interesting. But overall, I've really thought that these Blurple decks have been pretty interesting, very, very strong, very, very strong. I think it's one of the biggest things to end up thinking about. So, what are your guys' thoughts?
This list is one of those lists where if you think about what you were expecting going into the tournament, this deck makes a lot of sense. You're expecting a lot of Amber, Steel, and that Rafiki, the Basil, the Royal Guard. All of those early answers make sense for those decks. But if you were to look at this list after the tournament, I'm looking at it, after seeing all the results, you're like, oh man, there's so many cards in here that that I'm questioning, like that Rafiki, like the Magic Feather, like the Finders Keepers. Just in my own testing, the Finders Keepers has been too big of a tempo loss now. Blurple was, I was expecting Blurple to be the only deck that can get away with playing it, and to a certain point they still are. But with the current state of the game just getting as much value into every single turn and playing out bodies onto the board, 5 ink, that much resources that you're taking off a turn just to draw 3 cards is too much. We started seeing there's some other lists here that started running Second Star to the right, and that card is performing miraculously right now. You don't lose any tempo with that card because you're not a majority of the time you're just exerting characters to sing together and then draw 5 cards. You still have access to all of your resources to keep pace with your opponent, keep bodies on board, and you're drawing more cards with it, honestly. And what's some other cards here? The Ursula pick I kind of like. A lot of people are underrating that card right now because they're like, oh, what if you don't have a song to play? You don't really need the song to play. Ursula can just come down and exert a character. That effect alone is already good enough to include this card. Let's see. And then the Ana card is an okay pick for me. I think there's other better cards, but the good part is it is inkable. But definitely going forward, you're going to be seeing a lot of lists that are just going to become a lot more efficient than this list. But I really like what they brought to what we were expecting from this meta, being Amber Steel, and they probably did great into those Amber Steel matchups.
Hannah, what do you think of this deck?
Yeah. I think the deck is very strange. I mean, I guess I'm curious, like how many Amber Steel players they played against and how those went. I'm assuming, probably pretty well. Let's be honest. But I think it's weird if you're expecting a lot of Amber Steel to be playing Finders Keepers, just because it is slower. I would do Finders Keepers now that I know that Blurple is like going to be way better than I thought it was going to be, because somehow it can beat all the Amber Steel. I would now play Finders Keepers because Finders Keepers is still great against others, in the mirror. It's still great, but it's definitely a little strange for wanting to tack heavily into Amber Steel. So I don't know. Yeah, really weird cards. I don't think I've seen any lists with the Royal Guard in it besides this one. So I'm curious, like, how all these cards performed for him, and just very interested in some of his choices and which ones they would take out.
Yeah, I think I've tested around with the Royal Guard quite a bit, and I've been pretty impressed with that card. Especially, some people have gone with the 1-drop Rafiki that gives challenge to 3. And in this deck, you can oftentimes, I don't know about this specific deck, but like Vo had been mentioning, I've been playing more of a Second Star to the right version, and I have also been very impressed with that card. I think people are trying to overplay it a little bit in deck lists I've seen. I think it should probably be like a 2 or 3 of and not like a 4 of or something silly. But
Mhm.
that card, once you just have like, I don't know, like a Donald Flatfoot and a Bell on board, or like a random Elsa sitting around, all of a sudden you've drawn 5 cards and you get to commit another big body. So I've been very into that. But that also, like, one of the biggest things I noticed too is like our 1-drops, if they don't die like early on, they do just kind of sit around a little bit. So that's why I really like both Basil and Royal Guard, because Royal Guard, if you second star the right, all of a sudden challenges into like, I don't know, an opposing Ana or something silly, right? All of a sudden, if you like drew 5 cards, that guy's getting in there. But and then Basil, another great option too, because I think one of the coolest and most interesting parts about this new meta that we've seen is sort of the advent of support characters actually mattering a little bit. I think we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about Blue Steel, but support has weirdly felt more relevant than it ever felt the last few sets that we played, for sure, which I think is pretty cool and interesting, for sure.
Yeah. I do think it's kind of strange that he has 2 Madam M elephants. I always thought that like Amber Steel, if you're checking for it, you'd want to play as many as those as you can, and probably even more 1-drops. But
yeah,
I don't know. That's just my thought. Like I would do 4 of the 1-drops and of the elephant, probably at least a 3 of for this type of deck. But
yeah, a lot of weird numbers here in general, 2s and 3s and spots. That what is going on here? Where are we at? But no, I mean, he did well with it, so congrats to him. But I was very confused looking at this list a little bit. Again, shout out, like Mo said earlier, to this Ursula too, because I think that this card is a lot better than we were giving it credit for initially. Just like being able to exert something is really strong. Otherwise, not just this specific list, but do you guys think, what's the best way I can phrase this? I think Blurple is maybe the actual strongest deck. Do you guys think that there is a good way for other decks to like really tech for it? Or do you think it's just like, it's going to be a victim to like people deciding we're going to go wide and fast, which is kind of the old way that people sort of got at these Blurple decks? Like, what do you guys think of sort of the rock, paper, scissors? You know, what's going to be the paper to cover this rock, I guess is kind of my question.
I think it's a little bit too soon. Like, don't get me wrong, Blurple is an extremely strong deck. I would not be surprised if it stayed S tier for the rest of Fabled, but I think that there's just it's just way too early in Fabled to say that it's not gonna be, overtaken. There's just so many things we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen any of the, the song decks come out. Right now, it's winning in the battle of attrition of value of which bodies we can get on board. But there's, I just from what I've seen and played, I'm feeling like combos are going to be a little bit easier to get off right now, and those are a little bit harder to kind of cook deck building wise. But there's going to be somebody out there that's going to cook up some kind of combo deck that's going to be able to get around all of this, I believe, or just to do really well. It's just too early, and these are probably just the easiest types of decks to make and pilot. But I'm not one of those great deck builders, but I know that there's some great deck builders out there that's gonna make up something that's once we see, we're gonna think it's the craziest thing, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I think that this type of deck, Blurple doing so well, it just naturally lends itself to aggro is going to be really good now, even more than it is. I think there's definitely ways to tech for it in other. There's definitely ways to tech for it. I think the Emerald Clarabelle should be much better now because now people actually have cards in their hand, whereas when I was practicing against Amber Steel, it's like no one has cards in their hand. This card is awful.
Who needs those?
Yeah, no one needs it.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. Yeah. But now Clarabelle becomes way better. So Emerald decks can kind of come in and help out a little bit. Um Discard's not really the thing though, because it can draw so many cards, I'm thinking. But we just gotta see because I really like it's kind of an aggro list, but I really like the list that Christian's working with right now, the Amethyst Steel Burn list, because it really just helps on a deck that fights board so much. If you just have nothing on board, but you're winning anyway, it doesn't matter what you have on board, you know? So I really do like his list. Just the burn style of deck seems pretty good right now against Blurbo.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think like you guys are kind of saying, there's gonna be something out there, something quick, like that'll either like go too wide or find a way to outvalue. I like the Clarabelle suggestion a lot, especially 'cause that seems brutal as somebody's been practicing a little bit of Blurple recently. Is like if you're just sitting there like playing your dudes and you go second star to the right and they go me too, you know, and they go like
Yeah,
like an old
yeah,
Diablo
exactly. That,
situation. But yeah,
yeah.
it'll be interesting though. It'll be interesting. All right. Well, I'd like to move on, and I'm sure you guys know why I would like to move on because there was somebody in this top eight, a true person of culture. I haven't even seen this deck list yet, but what a good person! Incredible. There are so many interesting cards in this list, and I have not looked at this yet, so it's fascinating. But Justin Obardo, I salute you. A red purple enjoyer made it into the top 16 of the 15Ks. And all I can say, I've been doing a lot of testing of red purple. It is a deck that has felt like it is the classic thing of red purple, what it's always been, where you can kind of go bigger and greedier if you want, or you can go lower and really fight with the aggro decks. So like, I think these red purple decks are gonna win and lose based on how you build them and then how you actually play those games. More so than just dying to match up like we've seen some decks do, which has always been kind of the strength of red purple and why I've always loved the deck. Obviously, we don't have Be Prepared anymore, so things are a little bit more interesting where a removal, lose the way, and everybody's got a weakness are very interesting cards. And I really like both of these cards going into the new format quite a bit because, as we've sort of talked about, there's a lot of staring contests. And one of the nice things about these red purple decks is you have a way to take advantage of if your opponent is not ready to blink and you force them to blink, you can do things like Mulan, Maui Shark. They're playing this Mother Gothel, which I have not gotten the chance to test yet, but it seems like a very interesting choice for sure that can make math significantly more difficult for your opponent. So I'm very into a deck like this. I haven't tested this version or anything, but there's definitely some cool stuff here. Also, this Prince John, he's doing work because damage is like weirdly a resource for these decks too. So like you think it's just trivial to like just trade with guys and keep damage around, but you actually want a card that just inherently has damage like this Prince John or Mulan, like because everybody's got a weakness is such a good and strong card that can kill an illusion, draw cards, kill a random guy that they weren't expecting to, and draw cards. So like very interested in deck styles like this. What do you guys think about this style of deck?
I do like where this deck is starting, but there's a few things that I'm like, why is this here? Like the Maui Shark. Like I'm like, I guess they just didn't want to get rid of their Maui Sharks. I don't know. It seems kind of like a redundant card. Like, don't get me wrong. If they're just playing it for stats, it's probably one of the best cards you could play for just the stats, but enough actions and not meaningful actions in that of itself to myself wanting to include a Maui Shark into this list. Otherwise, all the other cards I like.
I just noticed there's no Dumbo.
The Yzma is an interesting pick. Mm-hmm. And it could just be through scarcity. They might not have just been able to get any Dumbos, but this deck wouldn't hurt for this list to have a Dumbo. But I also don't think that this is a Dumbo style of deck. This is one of the decks that I've been cooking up myself, and I have a few cards that's a little bit different. Yeah, I think they were just playing with what they had, because I'm looking at it now. They don't have any new cards in it. These are all only up to set 8 cards. So they probably were just playing with what they had, which, kudos to them. They did very well. But I think there are better builds with yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now they're gonna put
Yeah, more products coming out, so they're gonna have some cards to put in there. And this deck it is very underrated, I think, right now. That's what I think about this deck.
What about you, Hannah?
Well, I've had a lot of experience recently playing Blurple. And Christian had Yzma's in his Amethyst Steel list, and against Blurple, it is a very bad card unless they don't have Elsa on turn 4. It is a terrible card, because if you play that and that's your only draw, or one of the only cards in hand, and you play that and you expect it to live, it won't live. Elsa will come down, tap it, take and then they can use another character to take it out, or Elsa and Hypnotic Strength, or whatever it is. At that point, that thing is not going to be able to use its ability unless they have like a terrible hand without Elsa, which does happen sometimes. But I'm not super high on the Yzma right now, just because of all that practice. But I mean, if you can get it off, if you can make it work, it will win you so many games. But we haven't found it to be able to win. I don't think that he ever really got it to go off against Blurple, just with me playing it. So, and we've been playing a lot of games, so I'm not too high on the Yzma. But
yeah, I think looking at this list a lot, I mean, really kudos for this. He obviously, I don't know if it was scarcity with a lot of these cards, but there's a lot of interesting choices in here. Another big, MIA in here is the 7-drop Hades, which I feel like is like one of the biggest reasons to be in this color combination personally, because you get to draw more cards than a lot of people with that card. But definitely an interesting deck list for sure. I don't know. I would. This is one of those times where you'd love to get in their mind and be like, what's going on up here? What are we playing all this stuff for? You probably know more than me now, but definitely some interesting stuff here.
Yeah.
But obviously, person of culture, Frankenstein, perfect deck list name, by the way. Good for them for doing well with this deck list. So the next one I wanted to talk about was a green-yellow list that is kind of merging two worlds here. I guess it took second at a 6K, but it is an Under the Sea Dogs deck, which is like pretty interesting right here. I think they literally called Sea Dogs. Very cool to see a deck that's kind of got an aggressive curve and just plays a bunch of stuff on board, but also Under the Seas. Didn't think that Scrump would see play in the 2025, but here we are. Big Scrump enjoyer now. And it makes sense because it worked with the Under the Sea. And the whole deck, I'd be interested to test this a little bit, but what a wacky looking deck. I don't even have much to say here. Just interesting looking pile of cards. What do you guys think?
Nah, it doesn't look wacky to me at all. This is another deck that I've been working on, and the Scrump just makes so much sense, honestly. This is one of those decks where you're just spitting out cards onto your field, and from an outside view, it probably looks like they're just an aggro deck spitting out characters on the board, but there's actually so much planning and strategy behind these types of decks to play it correctly. Anyway, you could just play it as an aggro style, spit out characters and press a 20. Yeah, which is why I like this deck so much. Me as a player, I like to be able to make decisions and have access to more cards in my deck, and this is one of those decks that lets me have the best of both worlds, because I do not really enjoy playing aggro, but this is as close as it gets to me playing like an aggro style deck. And it's just because, you know, you have to strategize with your tramp filters. You have to know when to quest, when not to quest. You know, a lot of people are going to just spit out their daisies and just quest like mad with them, when the correct thing might be to just let all of your characters stand. And it's going to feel very, very strange to somebody who hasn't played this style of deck. But I say, like, keep an eye out for this deck. I'm expecting a lot of great things from this deck, and the Scrump was not a card that I was playing with before, but it makes total sense to me, and I'm gonna be playing that card if I do want to play with Under the Sea. I just really like how this deck looks overall.
A little Steel Song adjacent kind of behavior.
Exactly.
Right? Where you're like playing the tempo game of I can go super fast or I can control the board a little bit. Kind of similar style situation there, but I also sucked at that deck too. So no.
Yeah, this deck is nice. You get to attack your opponent and the board from a lot of different angles. Sometimes, you know, your opponent is, even though you're not questing, your opponent can see you're threatening like 12 lore whenever you want to just send it. And it's something that they must answer. So that's where the other tramp comes in. If you can get him out there, and then you're like, all right, I'm just gonna threaten, you know, all the quests now and go. You need to answer them, otherwise you're gonna lose the game if they just went for 12. And as you're taking out characters on their board, they're gonna just refill their hand. And a deck like this running, let me see, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 22 1-drops. If you replace it, you know, you can only do so many trades every turn. But yeah, I love the look of this deck so much.
Any thoughts from you, Hannah?
Yeah, I am very excited about this deck. I think it's pretty awesome. I thought it was interesting. Christian tried to reach out to the person who played it, and the guy sent him messages back and started talking about the deck. And one of the things he said was that normally he only had like 3 ink or something on his side, but it didn't matter because all of his cards were so little that he could just play all of them. And I thought that was really cool. And then I think Scrump is just really cool that he was able to figure out a way to actually utilize a card that normally is just like thrown into the bulk bin and forgotten about. So I think it's interesting that he did this, and I'm very curious like how it will work Nets tournament. If someone tries to bring it, what will happen? I'm just curious. Like
stonks like this right now, just going off.
Yeah.
I think one of the underrated cards of this list is going to be the Bobby Zimmerski. I playing this card or playing this deck in the past. You would play the Yzma because this is very much a combo style deck. You need very specific style draws and picks and things on the board, and you used to play Yzma on 2 to help filter and fix your hand. But with this Bobby being a 1-drop, and this deck very much wanting as low of a curve as possible, that Bobby makes a much bigger difference than everybody's giving it. Basically, just giving him his stuff for. He's very, very good. It's a very big change.
Cheese Boy is quite strong. Cheese Boy.
He's very strong.
One cost dude that can filter out your unneeded thing, like a random little John or Nala that you're not looking for, and then turn it into something valuable. Just huge. Just huge. But I
just recently put Bobby in my green blue Under the Sea deck, and he has been very good so far. Don't know what I was doing without him.
You were being lactose intolerant or something, probably.
I guess so. Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely. It'll be interesting to see how lists like this evolve. The thing that strikes me a little bit is I wonder how much room there is to like kind of create flexibility in it, like what you would be looking for if you're looking for other things, or if you're just like, or if this is the type of deck that you just like learn the gameplay patterns and then you just go, I'm just gonna run it, you know. So it'll be kind of interesting to see where we go this style of deck. And then the last deck we wanted to talk about is going to be one of my personal favorites in the meta right now that looks like it did fairly well in the SSG tournament, was the Blue Steel Allies deck. This one is different from the lists that I've played and run for sure. You can tell that this is my first reaction looking at this list because I'm like, what is going on here? A little bit. But it's pretty interesting because we got Aurora Dreaming Guardians. We don't have the Jasmine, which I've seen a lot of lists play, and that's what I've mostly played, is the Jasmine. So I found that kind of interesting about this. But the core of what you kind of do in these decks is sort of, you have Scar, you have a bunch of characters that are randomly allies, like Lawrence, Genie, Doc, Ben, Pluto, all these random ally cards. And you use an ability like support from a Ben or particularly Alice. You juice it up and then you send it to the bin with Scar and you draw a bajillion cards. And you put draw a card on something and I'm like a moth to a flame. I love decks like this that get to like do stuff on board, lay fatties, and just draw a bunch of cards. So don't have to sell me on it, but pretty interesting deck in my opinion. Not sure what I think about this particular list, but I'd be interested in your guys' thoughts.
I like this list a lot. I've kind of seen both play out, and Hector was just on was interviewed earlier, and he was talking about it, and it made so much sense. Like you were talking about that Jasmine open, it while it is very strong, it leaves room for inconsistencies, and it is very much a high roll. And when you're thinking about, DLC type tournaments where you must play consistently for, 12 rounds, I don't know if I personally would like to leave that much variance on the table for me to whiff and lose because I didn't get a Jasmine open. So that's why I very much like this list a little bit better. You're less reliant on it, and you feel, from a deck building perspective, you feel a lot less like required to add allies into your deck. Although like this deck does run a lot of allies, you don't feel bad putting in some other good characters that aren't allies in the deck that's going to not get hit when you quest with that Jasmine. And that's why I like this list a lot, because Alice is another card. It's a huge card that it's been coming in and out of those lists with the Jasmines because she's not an ally, but I think that she's so good to have in this style of deck. And yeah, since you don't have the Jasmine, you can one weakness that I found with the deck was you didn't have that early pressure or that that early answer to the more aggressive style decks. And because you don't have that Jasmine package that you're so reliant on, you can play the Captain Hook, who's not an ally. You can also play Happy, which is an ally, but it can answer some evasives early on. I like this list a lot better than the Jasmine one if I were thinking about DLC style tournaments where you need the consistency for that many rounds.
I do really like the Jasmine just because it's so cool when you can get it off. But I understand just taking them out to have a more consistent deck. I think both works out pretty well. I think it's really cool, all the support characters that you have to boost guys. I don't think I thought about that until I saw somebody's list with it in it, and it makes so much sense. It's like, oh, why didn't I think about that? I'm not sure. I'm not a genius. But yeah, I think that's really cool. I love Pleakley right now. I think Pleakley is really good in a lot of decks and so I'm curious to see how well it will do as the time goes on. I think the card I question the most is the Aurora. It's just never been good because Blurple can Hades the Aurora and then take out whatever other card that you probably had turned sideways. Who knows if you did or not, but that one's a little questionable for me. But I think overall, did well. I think it's really cool. I love support characters. I used to play a big support deck, so I think it's really good. I enjoy it a lot.
I do wonder if we aren't gonna lean as heavy into allies and maybe not play like the Jasmine package. I wonder maybe we could look at something like Namari in a deck like this too. Like you said,
For
maybe
sure.
maybe in that Aurora spot, especially Namari with Alice is like the most heat because you give something like support a bajillion, and then if you got Scar out, if you're living in magical Christmas land, you draw a bajillion cards. That's pretty good, and then you got to worry about milling out. But one thing I could see Aurora being a thing to think about is actually kind of the case that you gave Hannah, which is Aurora against Purple. It does force them to Hades her instead of like your Scar or something where you'd like to win.
Sure.
That might be a little bit win more, but it's definitely a consideration I can see. But
yeah, I think
I think
that
Aurora
the
is
biggest
there.
thing is I think it's probably more of a win more card, but who knows? I don't know.
No, from
You could
like
also
hearing
play that,
Hector's
play
interview.
something else. So, yeah.
Yeah, from hearing Hector's interview, the Aurora makes a ton of sense. Like you were saying, like it's there to basically be like a beacon to get the Hades and protect your other characters. They're almost never going to be able to Hades a character than Hades another character. So you'll have the Aurora out there to protect your Scar or your Alice. Hector was saying in one of his matches where he had double Alice on the board, he played out the Aurora to protect it. Next turn, he supported his Alice who quested for 5, supported his other Alice, quested for another 5, and that gave him game. Just right off of that. The Alice is, I think, a very underrated card right now.
That is the card that even in like Jasmine versions, I've been a little bit surprised by. Not just this like sort of cheesy draw a bajillion cards to Scar thing, but you can make her quest for 5 like kind of pretty like significantly more times than you'd think, because you're just playing so many. I like to call them chonkers. You're just playing just huge chonkers all the time, just to like and then you get a Lawrence and a Pluto out, and then you have a Alice or a Scar out together, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, she quests for 5. That's kind of nice in a world where you need to end the game one day. So very cool.
That is a good point about. Sorry, one more thing. That is a cool thing about the Aurora is like, you don't have to play turn 5. It's more of a this is game ending if they can't Hades my guy. Play it now, and then it seems like that's a good game ender.
For sure. But it'll be exciting to see, like just to kind of finish up on this deck, it'll be exciting to see how these evolve as well. I think maybe this is the next step as we do start to look away. I've been kind of stuck practicing the Jasmine package, but I'll probably practice without it as well and see how that feels, because I definitely could see a world where you're like, I'm just going to play big, chonky, blue steel dudes, and you got to deal with it, because my house is going to quest for a bajillion. So be interesting to see how these decks evolve. But kind of going into sort of final thoughts on the weekend in general, a lot of winner decks and loser decks for sure, and different things that we can think about. I don't know about you guys, but the biggest thing I'm ending this sort of weekend with is like a feeling of I just don't know anything anymore, because like I thought that Amber Steel is just going to take down everything and we're all going to be so angry about Lady, and now we're all trying to figure out how do we beat Dumbo and Hades. So it'll be interesting to see how the meta evolves. It's very, very cool to see.
For sure, yeah. I'm the opposite. I'm super excited. Like I'm going on a vacation right now, but like, don't get me wrong, I'm super excited for that. But I also cannot wait to get back and start like really like grinding down on some matches and really learning everything heading into Bologna, where a few of us are heading to. But yeah, lots of good gameplay to look forward to.
Yeah, I am very curious what's going to be coming out next weekend. I really wish I knew what deck to play because obviously Blurple did amazing this time. That means Amber Steel is so much better, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I said it before. I don't know what to play, but I am excited to play. And excited to kind of report back to the team and to everyone about what's going on, and very, very excited about all that. New changes are coming. Sure.
Yeah. So other than that, I think we are about done here. If you guys liked this content, please like, subscribe, comment, do all the good YouTube stuff. And thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I will see you in a couple weeks.